Canadian Association of Schools of Nursing and Canada Health Infoway, in collaboration with the Digital Health Nursing faculty peer leaders, are pleased to present Nursing Care in a Digital World. Meet the LaFontaine family. Manon is 61 years old and recently retired from her administrative coordinator position. Her husband, Pierre, is 65 and still working as a partner in a law firm. They have one son, Mark, who lives 3 hours away. Manon uses a wearable device to keep track of her physical activity and maintains a paper record of her health information. She enjoys looking up information online and socializing with her friends on Facebook.
My name is Manon, and I'd like to share my health experience story with you. Four days after my routine annual mammogram, I received a call from the lab center telling me that I needed to return for another mammogram and breast ultrasound. Although the administrative assistant told me this didn't necessarily mean something bad, I couldn't help but be anxious and immediately began searching the internet for more information. That was when I started coming across information about breast cancer, lumpectomies, and mastectomies. My second mammogram went much along the same as the first, but the ultrasound took much longer, and I tried to figure out if there was a problem by watching the X-ray technician's facial expressions, but I really couldn't tell anything. That ultrasound was followed by referral to the breast cancer center by my family physician and yet another mammogram and ultrasound, along with a biopsy. The assisting X-ray technician was very kind but couldn't divulge any information. After my trip to the breast cancer center, I tried to put it all out of my mind. I carried on with some decorating projects and tried to continue my normal activities. It was 6 days later when I received a phone call from my physician's office asking me to come in that day. I went to the appointment with a sinking feeling in my stomach. I had done plenty of my own research and knew that it was unlikely to be good news if she needed to see me in person. That day I learned that I had invasive lobular breast cancer. I was referred for further diagnosis and treatment planning at the breast cancer center. When I got home, I called Pierre to let him know the bad news and then immediately began looking up information on invasive lobular breast cancer. The center called to book an appointment with a nurse navigator and surgeon for the following day. When Pierre came home from work, he was very quiet, and after supper he too began searching the internet. We were both really scared. Pierre and I went to the breast cancer center the next day. The nurse navigator took a history, which she then documented in my electronic health record. She noted that I have no other current health problems and am 15 pounds overweight, and she described my drinking of 8 ounces of wine a day as moderate. Untrue. After reviewing my diagnostic information and history, the surgeon ordered further tests to determine the size and extent of the cancer. He told us that he would book the surgery for a mastectomy, and if the cancer looked small enough to leave an adequate margin, a lumpectomy could be a possibility depending on what I wanted. The nurse navigator gave us some really good information about the diagnosis, the tests I was booked for, the treatments for breast cancer, and some do's and don'ts. She also gave us the contact information for complementary therapies, breast cancer information sessions, and both virtual and face-to-face options for support groups. From my own research on the internet, I thought that a mastectomy was a safer option for my type of cancer because I learned that it can be hard to detect with a mammogram. I told this to the nurse navigator, and she gave us some evidence-based information on both the mastectomy and lumpectomy. She also provided us with an information sheet that recommended good quality internet sites and her contact information in case we had more questions. Pierre was pretty certain that, based on his extensive research about breast cancer, that I should have a mastectomy. He called the nurse navigator to get more information from my pathology report of the biopsy, just to be sure. The nurse explained that this information is confidential, that she could only discuss it with me, and that ultimately it was my choice to consent for treatment or surgery. She told him that she would be happy to discuss any issues with me and suggested that we book an appointment to meet together with her after all the results were in. Then I went through what felt like a marathon of tests: CT, bone scan, MRI, and biopsies in both breasts. I joined a virtual community of breast cancer survivors that was listed on an information sheet the nurse navigator had given me, and posted a couple of questions on the site on lumpectomy and mastectomy. While I got a lot of supportive comments, I think I ended up more confused about options because everyone seemed to have different opinions. When Pierre and I met with the nurse navigator after all the results were in, it wasn't all so grim. My cancer hadn't metastasized. It was only in one breast, in the one small area that they found with the first scans. We used a decision framework that we worked through with the nurse, and I decided to choose a lumpectomy as my best option. After a pre-admission surgical assessment by a nurse, it was time for my surgery. The nurse who admitted me to the hospital pulled up my pre-admission assessment and added more information from that day in my electronic health record. I was whisked off to have dye injections and then back to have the IV started. I felt reassured that everything about my case was recorded in the same place on my health record. The operating room team was so nice. The lead nurse introduced herself before I went into the OR, and then once I was in the OR, the lead nurse, the surgeon, and the anesthetist each gave information to the team about my case, so I felt confident that they knew what they were doing. The room looked so technical, with computers and all kinds of beeping equipment, but the people helped me relax and seemed to know just how to reassure me. I know I had a lumpectomy, and they told me I also had biopsies on the nodes in my armpit. But I really don't have any memory of the surgery, just the reality that I woke up in the recovery room with a nurse who was gently waking me taking my vital signs and giving me information on where I was and what had happened. Then it seemed like in no time I was ready for discharge. I appreciated the information on how to care for my dressing and was reassured because I had a phone number to call if I had any concerns or questions. Not only that, I had a list of things to watch for. Then, the day after I got home, the nurse from the hospital called me at home to see how I was, how the dressing was doing, and to make sure I was following all the instructions I had been given when I left the hospital. She also gave me a phone number to call if I was worried about anything. I think I had been really well prepared and I didn't have any concerns, but I felt reassured that she was checking to see if everything was going okay. Wow! After all the worry and fretting we both did, I recovered really well. I contacted my support group for information about exercises that work well, and one member sent me a sheet of exercises to do after a lumpectomy, and I was diligent in following the advice. I visited the surgeon 2 weeks later, and he was really happy with my progress. He sent me to radiation and medical oncology doctors for the next stage of my cancer journey. The radiologist told me I needed 16 radiation treatments over 4 weeks, and then a radiation nurse talked to me about what to expect and what I needed to do during the treatments. She also gave me printed material about radiation and its side effects like fatigue and skin changes. And some instructions to follow. She also gave me a business card with her name, phone number, and email address on it, and let me know that she would be following my progress and was available to answer any questions by phone or email. Next, I had my appointment with the radiation oncologist and was given more news. The biopsies of the sentinel and axial nodes were negative, and she told me it was estrogen positive, so I would be on tamoxifen for 2 years after I finished my radiation treatments. I found out that the risk of recurrence is 18 to 20% without tamoxifen and radiation. That tamoxifen reduces the risk to 15%, and radiation lowers it even more, so I definitely wanted to do both. Every radiation treatment also included an electronic symptom checklist, which allowed the radiation nurse to track how I was doing. I would report on my level of fatigue, nausea, pain, anxiety, and mood. When I did this, I could see how I rated these symptoms previously. I felt pretty good while getting the radiation treatment, so my ratings weren't high. I got through all the radiation treatments without a problem. Then, 1 week after the last treatment, my breast was really red and swollen, and boy was it itchy. I found the card that the radiation nurse had given me and called her. She asked me some questions about the redness and itchiness I was experiencing, and then suggested I use 1% hydrocortisone cream. It did help, and gradually, the redness and itchiness went away. I went for my regular appointment with my family doctor soon after this. Everything seemed to be fine, and she told me that she was now on a portal where I could see the e-reports of the tests and treatments I had had. I'm the type of person who really likes to know as much as possible about what's happening to me, so I took her up on this. I logged on to it right away. And even though I didn't understand a lot of the technical things in the reports, I got the gist of most of them. The only other problem I had with the treatment started 2 months after the radiation. I felt a lot of discomfort in my armpit and a tingling sensation in my arm. I found information on lymphedema on the internet and worried that this is what I had. I didn't know who to contact about my problem. I wondered if it was my family doctor, the surgeon, or the medical oncologist who would help me. I got out the card the radiation nurse had given me and called her. On the phone, she listened to my concern, asked me some more questions about the symptoms, and let me know that I should get this checked out by the surgeon. I made an appointment with the surgeon, who did a thorough assessment, and thank goodness it was not lymphedema. I was reassured that I was healing well. Well, here I am 2 years later. I've been followed by a medical oncologist, and I am still on tamoxifen. I do worry that I could get cancer again, maybe in the other breast, so I stay in contact with my virtual support group, and I'm involved with fundraising for the Breast Cancer Society. And now it's me giving the support, not just receiving it.